Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about empowering people to embrace and accept their bodies, fat is not a feeling, and how your relationship with your body can affect your relationship with your partner. But before we dive into that, Sammy, what's been fueling you up this week?
My biggest fuel up was very adult.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, we had a barefoot date night. And if you're not familiar with Scott Pape's multi-platinum, I don't know how you measure book sales, but book, The Barefoot Investor.
Sold lots of copies.
A barefoot date night is basically a money date. And we have them in our calendar every month, and it's an opportunity for us to just check in on our financials. Like, have we made the money that we thought we were going to make? Have we spent the money that we thought we were going to make? Are we on track with our goals? What are we doing to plan for the future? And Nathan and I usually do those money dates at home. But this one, we did out.
Yeah.
It was a very rare occurrence that we were both working from the CBD that day. So we met for a drink after work.
How corporate of us.
Yeah, very, yeah. And then we talked money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it fueled me up because we haven't done it like that in quite a long time. And yeah, we did some forecasting of a couple of things that we would really like to do in the future, and talked about what we might need to say yes to and what we might need to say no to be able to make those things happen. So I just really like the clarity that it provides us and that container to talk about money, so that we don't have to talk about it all day, every day, and that neither of us are flying blind for where we are with our finance and wealth.
Yeah, it really does set us up for success.
Yeah, what about you? What was your fuel up this week?
Mine was also another very adulty one. I had my RDO this week, but I spent the day tidying up our house and getting it all looking really, really nice. So
yeah, you're still finding your rhythm with this new 9-day fortnight kind of thing, hey?
Yeah.
But you had a very life admin day. Hey?
I did have a very life admin day, yeah. Cleaned the house, paid some bills, did all the adulty things that I had neglected for a little while.
Look how adult we are this week.
Oh, very adult. I think on that note, let's jump into this week's ep.
Today we're welcoming Debbie Saroufim. Debbie is a body relationship coach. After struggling with an eating disorder for years, she now helps women make peace with their body and build up their immunity to diet culture. Debbie works with clients one-on-one as well as in her private community, where you can connect with other women of all shapes and sizes and colours, all victims of diet culture. Welcome to the show, Debbie.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys. This is really fun.
It's great to have you.
Talking to you there down under.
Yeah. You're in Los Angeles, right?
I am. I'm in Los Angeles, so we're on 2 different days and everything.
Yeah, I've been. Nate hasn't.
No, I haven't been yet.
Oh, you haven't been to Los Angeles?
No.
I've never been to Australia. My husband always rubs it in my face that he's been to Australia. I want to go to Australia. It sounds amazing.
Come on down. We'll do an apartment swap.
Okay. Oh, be careful what you wish for, my dear. You just might end up living in a shitty house in Los Angeles. So you're all good.
Hey, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. You're on the Date Forever podcast, where we chat about our relationship with ourselves and then also our relationship with our partner. But I know that our relationship with ourselves and the way that we see ourselves and experience ourselves and our body can drastically impact so many other areas of our life. And this isn't a conversation that we've really dug too much into on the show. So I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit about your experience and your story and what you've learned. So can you take us back? I'm guessing you weren't always a body relationship coach.
No, I was not always a body relationship coach. You said some of it a little bit in the intro. I was raised by a mom who is 72 and to this day still has an eating disorder. So I was put on my first diet at the age of 6, and it was a preventative diet so that I wouldn't have to undergo the scrutiny that she felt she had to undergo. So that really, really, really early on in my life, I understood that there were good bodies and then there were bad bodies. And if you didn't have one of the good bodies, you should do anything in your power to get one of the good bodies because nobody wants a bad body. So that by the time I was in high school, I had a full-fledged eating disorder. It's kind of how it goes. So my sister also had one. I got help. I got in with a therapist and a dietitian and sort of worked on all of the behaviors and got rid of the behaviors, but just kept hating my body. And it just sort of felt like everything I did, every decision that I made was calculated around, will there be food involved? Will I have to be seen like in a bathing suit or naked? If so, how long do I have to prepare for it? Ahead of time, all those sorts of thoughts. It's just, they were consuming. I came out to Los Angeles. I came out here to go to college, but I also came out here to be an actress. And that world just sort of really reinforces the good body, bad body. And so I was a very unsuccessful actress, which is fine. That's not the sad part of the story. The sad part of the story happened when I was a kid. I'm fine being an unsuccessful actress. I became a personal trainer because I was like, this will be great because people will just pay me to exercise and be thin. And that's when I sort of had the realization, because again, I live in Los Angeles. It's the land. I don't know if they call it this in Australia, but it's the land of beautiful people. And so I was having all sorts of women, all different sizes, shapes, colors, you name it, all beautiful, all coming to me, asking me to fix their body. And I kept thinking, like, when are they going to notice that if I lift my shirt, my stomach doesn't look quite right? Or if I stand at the wrong angle, they'll see this. And that's when I sort of had the realization that feeling this way about your body, feeling like your body is bad or wrong or broken, isn't a symptom of your body being bad or wrong or broken, right? It's a symptom of this very, very broken culture. And it really wasn't size specific. I had models coming to me asking me to fix things. And I was like, how are they asking me to fix things, right? So it's these sort of ideas. And that's when I realized I didn't know how to keep being a personal trainer without sort of propelling the myth that there's sort of a good body and a bad body. I had to sort of realize, oh, everybody thinks they have a bad body and everybody's wrong, right? Not just thin people who think they have a bad body, but everybody's wrong. And so that's when I took a step back. And now I help women make peace with their body. Again, I don't think these feelings are size specific. I went so far as to have an eating disorder, but I really think that the big difference between an eating disorder and disordered eating is the extreme to which you will go to fix what you believe to be as a problem. And I saw how much of my life I lost to thinking about it. And so now I help empower women to make peace with their body. I think you can love your body even if you don't like all of it. And I think that can sort of, when we talk about sex and relationships, it's really, really similar to how it is with a partner, really. Because I don't think you have to love everything. I love my husband, but he bugs the shit out of me sometimes, right? And that's okay. And I don't expect it to never happen. And there are certain things that we work through and we go, okay, we're better for this. And then there are other things that I'm like, you know what? I know he's always been like this. And I don't know, this is just something that irks me. It doesn't need to irk me, but it irks me. And so that's how we've made it this far. And I think that sort of is what I'm looking to help you do with your body, because you don't have to fight with it all the time. You don't have to like everything about it. But my husband's really bad at waking up in the morning, and he's really bad at waking up in the morning. And I've stopped fighting him on it, because for years I would fight with him about waking up early, and it would spill into later parts of our day. He'd be like later at 3:00 in the afternoon, like, I'm behind in work. And well, if you had gotten up when I told you to get up, you would be done by now, and all that sort of stuff. And so it was just sort of this harbored resentment. And then I sort of realized, we've been together for 15 years. He's never been good at waking up in the morning. Maybe my expectation of him being good at waking up in the morning is just unrealistic. I still don't like that he's not good at waking up in the morning. It's totally frustrating, but I don't have to hold it against him anymore. He also takes the night shifts with the kids, which is awesome, right? But that's something I couldn't appreciate because I just wanted him to be a morning person. And now I'm able to be like, okay, you know what? I wish he was up in the morning, but I also get to take care of myself. I know what taking care of myself in the morning looks like, and he gets the night shift. So it doesn't have to be a sacrifice so much as just an acceptance of. And I think that we can do that with our bodies. And if we do that with our bodies,
yeah, practicing that non-attachment to a certain outcome or things being a certain way, or yeah, the language that Nathan and I use in our relationship is like, that's a gravity problem. Like gravity is always going to be there. It is the way that it is. There's nothing that you can do to change it. You can either learn to live with it or exit. Like, right? That's because there are some things that are just gravity. It just
yeah, no, I might start using that phrase. I think it's great. And you're right. It's just like, we can fight about this, but all that is going to come out of this is a continuation of the same fight. We're not becoming better people for it. And I think with relationships, I've actually been married before. I don't think that a perfect relationship doesn't have fighting. In fact, I barely fought with my first husband, and we are no longer together. So I don't think we're looking for peace at every moment. I think when you get the full spectrum of emotions, when you have the ability to get super angry, but also be super elated, right? Like you can't have the really, really great feelings without also having access to the really, really bad ones. And so again, I think you can have all of those feelings around your body, and it doesn't have to be a bad relationship, right? Like there can be certain days where you're just like, I cannot fucking stand this body. I can't. But that's okay, right? Because I sometimes, I'm not going to tell my husband not to listen to this podcast. I sometimes feel the same way about my husband, and then we're fine, right? Like at the end of the day, I know I want him next to me. I want him with me. I want to take care of him. I want to support what we've built together. And sometimes he's the last person in the world that I want to see because he's on my nerves. And that's okay, right? Like it doesn't have to be a deal breaker.
So Debbie, going back to like you being a teenager and having some issues with eating and your relationship with food and your body, and then seeing that modeled to you by a parent, by a guardian, by a caregiver, someone who's meant to have your very best interests at heart. And I'm sure that she thought that that was from positive intent, like that she thought your life would be easier if you had a good body.
She is just another victim of diet culture, 100%. No ill intent whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how did you go about having that healing journey while being in an environment or in a relationship with someone who hadn't yet gone through that healing journey?
That is an ongoing process, I would say. Honestly, really only been very recently. It's interesting. When I was in the worst of my eating disorder, my mom and I were like best friends. But this eating disorder was something we could share, right? And then as I moved out of the eating disorder, there was a lot of anger from me towards her for what she had done. Now, again, as a body relationship coach, I realized she's just another victim, right? This isn't anything she did to me. This is her trying to stay afloat, essentially. And so I think where we are currently at, and you can call me in a week or two and see if we're in the same place, but where we're currently at is I personally feel like I am at peace with, I'm not thrilled. She's not meet all my expectations of what I would imagine a mother to be, but this is the mother that I have, and I don't think there's anything wrong with her. I think she still holds a lot of shame around some of it. And so sometimes I feel that comes out in our relationship. But for the most part, my job is to remind her as we continue. She's still a very active part of our lives. We have kids, so we want grandparents involved in everything. My job is to remind her that even when she feels guilty, this is ironic because this is also what I do with my clients with food, but feeling guilty doesn't mean you have anything to feel guilty about, right? You might just feel guilty. And so I think that a lot of times my mom feels bad, and that's where I get to be like, hey, you feeling bad is you, right? I'm not mad. That's something you're holding on to right now. And the truth is that this is what you and I are having right now is a much more in-depth conversation around it, because I think that some of these conversations I can have with clients, there's a distance, there's a lot of emotion there, it's raw. So with my mom. So I think that's where I am in this. I guarantee you, if she were sitting here, she would have a very, very, very different perspective. And that is also okay. So
It's a journey.
It's perpetual. Yes, it's a journey.
Yeah. So if we're painting the generalist kind of brush, I would assume that most people have some insecurity about some part of their body at some points in time. Maybe not all the time, maybe not never, but there's things that maybe you looked in the mirror, wave a magic wand, it would be different.
Yeah, I mean, I have yet to meet anyone who doesn't. And I think at this point, recognizing what I do, I'd be very surprised if I did find someone, because I think culturally, our culture has really programmed all of us to be so self-critical and see ourselves as so far from acceptable that I'm almost worried if someone liked everything about themselves all the time, I'd be like, what part of the world are you missing?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong with you except for that. But like, what part are you missing? Because I think these feelings have been taught to us. I think it's reinforced in pretty much everything we do. It's reinforced in, if you watch the movies, like the hero's always really fucking sexy and like probably half naked. And then the villain's always this sort of slovenly, fat character. And it's just like, it's been ingrained. And so you don't have to say a lot to know that there are, like, nobody has to say, by the way, that's a good body and that's a bad body. We all know, right, what is a socially acceptably attractive body and what isn't. And so much so that we even feel the need to justify things. If we find, I'm attracted to her, but, and then fill in the blank, right? Like, or she's fat, but I find her attractive because da 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 da. Whereas the truth is that she's just attractive. You're allowed to be attractive, but there's shame in having a bigger body, and then there's also shame in being attracted to bigger bodies, and how that sort of impacts, especially like I've been working with some of my clients on how that's impacting as they're dating, what they're putting out there. What is it okay to put out there? What is it okay for someone to be attracted to in you? And what is a warning sign that you shouldn't, there's so much room for mind fuckage. That's a technical term. You can quote me on the mind fuckage term.
Absolutely. So, I mean, like everybody has a relationship with themselves and how they see themselves and how they experience themselves and what they feel about their body. So I know like one of my very early memories of being aware of my body, probably got two really cool memories from early. And one was I was ordering like my lunch from the school canteen in advance. Okay. And whatever the thing was, I think it was a mini pizza. I wanted to order two of them. And I was told, no, like maybe you should think that one is enough. And I was really upset about it because it wasn't about the food. And I knew what was on the school canteen, and I'd made an assessment that one was not going to be enough. Wanted to, but it was that I received that as a huge judgment on my body and what was okay. And then there was another one where we were backstage at a dance concert and everyone was all in costumes and things and sharing bags of lollies and treats and stuff. And the volume of girls that were saying no, and I had wanted to say yes, but I said no because everybody else had said no. And like it was such an unusual experience for like, I want that thing, but I'm not going to say yes to it because that's clearly not okay to be accepted by this tribe that I'm in. Like, and I was like a chubby kid. Like I look at pictures and I'm like got the little pot belly and my, dance leotard and stuff. And I look at my pictures of me in school sport and like I'm definitely the chubbier kid in the pictures. So I'm sure my parents had best intent telling me not to order two pizzas. But like I've had that. That's probably one of my earliest memories of like awareness of my body and the relationship with food. I feel like I'm quite accepting of my body. I don't recall ever going through much of a real deep dive journey to get there. Like I've always rocked a bikini. I'm happy to post pictures of my butt on Instagram. Like, I'll get my boobs out at the beach. Not really that phased about it. The thing that bothers me is that I'm breaking a rule as opposed to actually having my boobs out. But I know that that's not the same. Like, I have a lot of girlfriends who have infinite number of hang-ups about certain areas or things or like whatever. And it sounds exhausting. So although it's something that I don't connect with or relate to, I've definitely had and still have like fat days or frumpy days where I just feel uncomfortable in my body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're on the lucky end, which is awesome. And I think like your story, as soon as you started your story, I was like, oh, I know where this is going. Someone turned down the food. And then with the kids and the turning down, I was like, oh yeah, no, girls aren't going to, oh, okay. I know, like, it's just, I wasn't there, but I totally know that story. I think you're so fortunate that that didn't impact your ability to trust your body and listen to your body. I think for so many people, it does. That might have to do also, I mean, not that you didn't do the work, but like, it looks like you have a nice partner to support you in that as well, which is yay, you know, that sort of thing. But again, like the fact that you've been made to feel shame around wanting something, like, and perhaps I'm saying this because I just moments ago was like, anybody who doesn't feel that is crazy. And now you're like, I don't feel that. And I just really want to be clear that I don't think that you're crazy. But again,
yeah, no, I like, it's momentary. It's not something that I live in most days, whereas I know that other people do.
Well, and I think what I try and help women get to is where you are, right? Because the truth is that we all are going to feel that way, right? Again, like I have days where I wake up and I'm like, I'm so gross today. Why am I so gross today? What did I do since last night when I wasn't gross that I'm gross right now? So I think that those moments aren't going to go away. It could be for any number of reasons, right? It could be because you're stressed or because you drank a lot of alcohol and you're bloated. It can be any of those things. But to have those feelings, what I love about your story, honestly, is that you're like, yeah, I have those feelings. I know if I wait, they'll go away. Yes, right? Like that's what I teach you is all feelings, even the good ones pass, right? But a lot of times I think so many people, and for a very long time me, thought that these feelings were the new reality and that my job was to sort of fix this. So I think, I don't know, it leaves me optimistic that there's someone that I didn't teach that knows that like if you kind of just sit through these feelings, they'll pass. I do want to call one thing out though, this feeling, because I've used this so many times in my life. When we say we feel fat, and I want to bring attention to it because I feel like everybody listening to us right now has felt fat. Nathan, have you felt fat before? You feel like, yeah. Okay, we all feel, okay, except for, here's the thing though, fat's not a feeling. And so I have said it 100 times. And what I now realize, and I share this because this is part of how I have that relationship with my body, is culturally, again, we've been taught fat bad, thin good. That's not necessarily true. And I want people to be able to love their body, even if they don't like the size of it, right? But fat's not a feeling. Fat's something that lives on people's bodies, and some bodies have more of it than others. But what I think we mean when we say we're feeling fat is I'm not feeling the value that I have that goes beyond my physical presence. And that's sort of where, again, that's what's been taught to us, right? Is that you are valuable because you are thin, you are beautiful, you are attractive. And it's interesting because I'll work with some fat women who on days that they are feeling good, they're like, I forgot how fat I am. And I was like, no, you felt the power that you have and the value that you have that has nothing to do with your body, because at the end of the day, we as a culture have this definition of beauty. But the truth is, I talk about there's my truth, there's your truth, and then there's the truth with a capital T. And the truth is that all bodies are beautiful. All bodies can do all sorts of really fun things, right? Even if your body can't do what my body can do, that doesn't mean it can't do something really fun and exciting. And so when we feel fat, I'll challenge your listeners to say, oh, wait, fat's not a feeling. I'm not feeling the value that exists inside of me beyond my body. Because I think that I've had days in the past where feeling fat is the reason my husband made the moves on me. And I was like, I'm not in the mood right now. And now it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like now I realize, in fact, now sex can be a really cool way for me to feel the value of myself that is not just the shape of my body, right? That's my husband enjoying me, sometimes more casually, sometimes, but yeah, we could do whatever, right? But it's not, we've been together long enough. He's not like, your value is your body, bitch. Like he gets to tap in. And so sometimes on a day when I am feeling fat, and again, I'm going to use quotes just because fat's not a feeling, when I'm not feeling connected to my power, sex can even be a tool to tap me into that in a way where it never was before. So I think that's an important thing to sort of remember, because everybody here has thought I felt fat, and everybody here is going to think it again. I thought it like yesterday. And then I had to remind myself, oh, okay, wait, that's not a feeling, and my body hasn't actually changed. And that's just, I forgot how much value I had since the day before. That's it. That's all it is.
So, Debbie, you kind of touched on earlier that early in your journey, you kind of treated a lot of the symptoms and you kind of overcame some of the, I guess, the symptoms of having an eating disorder, but not actually the mindset game behind that. So I guess what were some of those first steps that you took to actually start shifting the mindset around eating and the eating disorder?
Oh man, that's a really, really good question. So I think that I was still in eating disorder brain until probably like by the time the fifth or sixth woman came to me to change her body and like pointed to something on me. I remember one of them, she like pointed to my stomach. She's like that, like, I want to look like that. And I was like, that's my bad, and it was, and so, but it was that sort of moment where I was like, oh wow, she's a completely, like, we always know that we're our own worst critics, but there was something about that exchange that was like, oh, this isn't just me being my own worst critic. Like, she has a different experience of me. My experience of me is just mine. And like, there's nothing I can't squeeze my stomach and be like, look at this. She's going to be like, I know, I love it. And like, there's, and I'm looking at her and I'm having the same sort of thing. And that's when I sort of realized, like, feeling that, okay, it's feeling this way isn't what I have to react to, because I think that up until that point, every time I felt, again, fat, I was like, okay, well, you got to fix that. And what do you do if you feel fat? You diet. And so it was like a very quick auto response. And then when I realized, oh, okay, this feeling has nothing to do with the size of my body, that's when I was able, when that feeling would come up, be like, okay, well, what do I actually need right now? And that's when sort of the mind shift. I forget the woman's name, but I can see her pointing to my stomach. And that must have been the moment. But I don't think I knew it was happening when it was happening. It just sort of, at some point, I realized that the answers I was giving clients as a personal trainer, they were looking at me very unsatisfied, because they'd be like, can you fix this? And I was like, I don't really know that there's anything to be fit. And like, people are just looking at you like, no, I'm paying you money to fix this. Can you fix this?
This is what I see as a problem.
Yeah. And so that's when I sort of realized, oh, okay, something's different. But I don't remember, like, it happened and I didn't know it was happening when it happened, if that makes sense.
I think one of the things that has, as I've reflected on it, as we've been talking about my relationship with my body, and I want to, like, have those days, and particularly over the global pandemic where we were in mandated government lockdown for like 5 months. Like, I was not the way that I like to be in my body. Like, it was not quite the shape and size that it normally is. And I definitely had feelings about that. And, I bought jeans that were bigger because, like, I needed bigger jeans, and wearing my jeans was making me feel like crap. So you just go, okay, this is not how I feel. But one of the things that I do practice, and I think this influences me a lot, is having gratitude for my body and the things that it allows me to do. And that is something that I do practice very actively. And when I go for a walk or exercise or anything, like, I'm moving my body like I love my body. Like, and what would be the action or movement or nourishment that, if I truly loved myself, what would that be? And sometimes that is a glass of wine, and sometimes that is the chocolate, but sometimes it's saying no to that extra slice of pizza, because that would not be a loving action or nourishment for me in that moment.
Okay, are you sure you're not a body relationship coach? Because you sound...
Maybe I've done more work than I thought.
No, I think it's awesome. And I think you're totally right. Like, when you have a good relationship with your body, it's not black and white. Diet culture, very black and white. Diet culture, good bodies, good food, bad food. But when you have a loving relationship with your body, you're allowed to have the cake, to have the chocolate, to say no to pizza, but then also sometimes say yes. Like, there's room for all of it. I do want to say, because I think that there are a lot of, I want to bring attention. You and I are both, actually all three of us are in, I can only see you from here down. But that'd be weird. But I can only see, but we're all in what I would consider to be a thin privileged body. And I bring attention to that because I know there's somebody listening to this who's like, well, yeah, but that's because she's thin, and I shouldn't have the extra piece of cake, and I shouldn't have the extra glass of wine, and I should definitely just not eat the pizza at all because I'm in a fat body. And I'm saying this because I want to give permission to your fat listeners. And I use the word fat freely. I know some people are really uncomfortable with it, but I don't believe fat is
State of being, right?
It's a state of being. So I don't believe it's a bad thing. And I think that when we are afraid to use the word, it becomes a bad thing. But again, fat's just something that's on people's bodies and in different sizes. So I think, again, it's really fantastic. And if you're interested in working as a body relationship coach, we should talk because I'm looking to expand. But I do want to say to the listeners out there who might not be in a thin privileged body, you are also allowed to have the wine. You are also allowed to have the cake. The reason I call it thin privilege is because we don't really get a choice in what kind of body we have, right? And some of the people I know who the least amount of food are people in fat bodies, mostly because they don't think that they should be eating because their body is too big. And so we have to remember all bodies, not just thin bodies, not all bodies deserve to eat. You don't have to think. You can feel guilty about eating. This is where the guilt comes back, right? You can feel guilty about eating, and it doesn't mean you're wrong for doing it. And so I call it thin privilege because I think the world is much nicer to thin people than it is to people in fat bodies.
Just much like the world is kinder to people who are white and who are of a mainstream religion and who are...
Absolutely. It's the same sort of thing. We're not better for that. We just have an easier time, right? So on the scale of privilege, I'm white. I have white privilege. I have thin privilege. I'm a woman. So I get docked down just a little bit. Jewish. Okay. All right. Well, that's not
still a mainstream religion.
Yeah. But yeah, depending on where you go. Totally. And so I just want to point that out because some of these behaviors, we think it's okay, or we go, well, it will be, if I can just lose the weight, then I can do what she's doing. And that's not true. You can do it now. Your body, you don't have to apologize for it. And that goes for eating, but that goes honestly for everything, right? So to just know that you don't have to, again, the world is going to discriminate against you in a fatter body. There are certain things that they don't have, that fatter people don't have access to. I know certain rides like amusement parks and all sorts of, there's fat phobias everywhere, but you don't have to apologize for your body. That's a problem with our culture, but it's not your problem. That is a cultural problem. It's not you. I just want to.
Yeah. I want to integrate this conversation with how this impacts our relationships. Like if our relationship with ourselves and our body is not the healthiest or it's not where it could be, how does that influence romantic relationships?
Yeah. I mean, how doesn't it influence romantic relationships? My ex-husband, I was still in full eating disorder mode. We did not last long. He was really not very nice to me. And for the longest time, I thought I was lucky to have him because I didn't believe I was that great. Again, I believed, in retrospect, I realized even back then I was in a thin privileged body. I wasn't necessarily the thinnest I'd ever been, but I was in a thin privileged body. But at the time, I felt fat. And again, we know fat's not a feeling, but when I was not feeling my power, that was beyond my body. And I didn't believe that my body had any power. And so I was really, really grateful that this guy who treated me like shit wanted to marry me. And we didn't fight, but that's probably part of the reason we never really fought is because I didn't want to
rock the boat.
The boat. Yeah. We had it for the most part pretty good. And so I think when you're apologizing for your body, it's really easy to lose sight of your wants versus who you're starting to date or your partner because, so many of the women that I work with are like, well, who would want this? And again, that's not size specific, right? I've got super thin women thinking it and I've got super fat women thinking it. So it's not the size, right? But what about how you behave changes if your belief about yourself is, well, they'll probably run as soon as they see fill in the blank, right? And so I think it impacts everything. And it's been as small as to me agreeing to go on a date that I didn't really want to go on when they said, hey, do you want to go see this or this? And I'd be like, whatever you want. And then I ended up doing something I didn't want to do. But it's gone so far as to I've definitely gone further in certain sexual situations than I've wanted to. Cause again, I was just like, oh, he's into me. That's cool. And I don't want to lose that. And I've already got the cards stacked against me because again, I believed my body was bad. And most of those happened when I was younger. But if my attitude around my body hadn't changed, I don't think I'd be in a relationship that I'm in right now, which I think is a really good one, despite the fact that he sucks at waking up in the morning. I think it's a really good relationship. So I feel the cool thing about being at peace with your body is that I also think you're not reliant on your partner or spouse or whatever seeing you as beautiful that day to know, again, that you're beautiful, right? So when you know that I'm beautiful, not because my hair looks like this or my skin is like this or my waist is like this, but because I'm beautiful because bodies are beautiful and we're allowed to be beautiful in all of our differences, and even the ones that culturally have been labeled as disgusting. Like when you get, like, it's not, right? Like shapes are interesting and I can be a beautiful person. Then if your partner's not that into you for a day, because again, so, if he doesn't wake up on time, I'm not in the mood to have sex. And so, but like, it doesn't have to be a reflection of you, right? That can be more about where they're at that day, because we're all allowed to have these different experiences and these different perspectives floating around at the same time, coexisting. And so it gives you a little bit more freedom to be you in a relationship, see who you are.
Yeah, I love that.
So, Debbie, if someone's hearing this and they're like, yep, I've definitely got some of this internal chatter going on. I know I'm not speaking to myself with the utmost kindness that I could be. And I want to start to improve the way that I see myself and the relationship that I have with myself, particularly around body. What's the first step? What's something that people can do to start moving the needle and improve that relationship?
Well, the first thing, honestly, is identifying it. And it's hard to do, I think, because I think so many of these thoughts that are now very natural are things that, again, we've been taught to have. So, and I'll give some more concrete things than just this, I promise. But I do have a self-assessment for you to see, like, where am I? How impacted by diet culture have I been? Because we don't even sometimes know that when the voice is like, you're gross, you're fat, you're ugly. Okay, I can hear it and I know that it's talking shit to me. But sometimes it's really covert in its messaging, right? It's like when I go to grab something and then it goes, oh, you don't need to eat that yet. And then I walk away, right? Like it can be super, super subtle in its messaging. And again, because it's reinforced, I mean, even look at your story where the school was like, no, you don't need any more food. That should be plenty for you. Like it's constantly reinforced by everyone around us. So a lot of times we don't realize that we're not feeling good about ourselves. We think this is just how you're supposed to feel. And so I do have a self-assessment people can check out so that they can say, the whole point, it's a bunch of different commonly said phrases, although I guess I wonder if down under they're slightly phrased differently. But it's a bunch of commonly used phrases that actually really are diet culture phrases. You can look and you can be like, oh no, all my thoughts are diet culture. I want to say first off that there's no shame in having diet culture thoughts because I still have them all the time. We're taught to have them, but identifying them as diet culture thoughts, back to the answer to your question, identifying them as diet culture thoughts rather than reality, rather than the truth is the first thing, right? Because then again, you can come back to, you'll have that thought, I'm feeling fat. Okay, all of a sudden you go, okay, wait. Debbie told me fat's not a feeling. That's a diet culture thought. Oh, okay, this is one of those times that like I'm being taught how to feel. I've been taught to feel this way. Culturally, it doesn't actually mean I have to feel this way or that I should feel this way, right? So I think the first step to talking back to it is identifying it. And then I think a couple of other things that you can do, and these are some really honestly simple things, is you can start to diversify what you look at on social media. There are some really, really beautiful different examples of different types of bodies, fat bodies, thin bodies, but it goes within gender as well, different sizes, shapes, colors, older, younger. I think what we need to sort of normalize is that there's no one way to be beautiful. And when your social media feed is filled up with all of these stereotypes, you're going to feel like you're failing, right? But when you get rid of some of that and you add in some stuff that, again, normal bodies are beautiful, right? So you can put normal bodies in your feet.
Yeah, you've just reminded me of something that was pivotal for my relationship with my body was when I started pole dancing classes. And I was around all different shapes and sizes of bodies, mostly naked 2 or 3 times a week in, not manicured, perfectly lit, filtered, photoshopped lighting.
Makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
It was so good for me to be like, that's just what actual bodies look like. That's what real people look like all of the time. And that was probably like 5-6 years ago. Yeah. So I think that, as you've said that, I think that has been more influential than I've probably given it credit for.
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, just hearing that, I'm like, oh, yes, that is so much of it, right? So normalizing normal bodies. And there's a couple you can follow. If you follow the hashtags normalize normal bodies, that's a good one. You can follow some hashtags fat activist or anti-diet culture. You're going to find a lot of normal bodies there. And again, normal bodies can be thin bodies, but thin bodies also have dimples and rolls and all of the things that are airbrushed out, right? And normal, beautiful bodies come in different ethnicities and backgrounds, and different bodies come in different types of shape. Even thin, you get certain shapes of thin and then other shapes of thin. Like, let's just normalize the fact that there's more than one way to look. And then just because of your story, I'm going to say, if you have time to take a pole dancing class, it sounds like it would be highly effective, because you're right. You're going to just see a bunch of nakedness.
And upside down and like hanging from different angles that are not
and contorted
like,
Yeah. And that's normal, right? Like, and that's okay. And I love the pole dancing example because it's also really fucking sexy what you can do with your body, right? Even with the dimples and the rolls and the weird. I've tried pole dancing and I ended up completely bruised all over my legs. But like, even the bruises were sexy, like, it's just, look at what you're doing. It's so cool.
You earned them.
Yeah, exactly. My legs earned these bruises on the pole. Yeah. So I just think like that is a great example. And then I would also challenge you, if you're in a situation where, I know so many women are so uncomfortable being in swimsuits or tightly fitted clothing, I would just remind you that your experience of your body is yours, right? So we don't know if, I know the imagination always goes to like, I'm in a swimsuit and they're looking at me and they're like, oh my God, her stomach is so gross. But the truth is that for all you know, they're looking at you and saying, I wish I had her stomach. Or they're looking and they're like, wow, she's so brave for wearing that bathing suit, which, by the way, totally a fat phobic thought, but also like shows that they're not that brave, right? Like that. So we don't like, anybody's thoughts that they have, first of all, are just theirs, and we're not going to know. But second of all, really tell you more about where they're at emotionally than it tells you about anything about your body, because they can be judging you regardless of your size, and it's all about them. So just to remember that you can be uncomfortable in, let's say, if you're wearing a bathing suit, you can be uncomfortable in a bathing suit. Being uncomfortable in a bathing suit doesn't mean you shouldn't be wearing it, right? That you're allowed to be uncomfortable doesn't mean that there's a reason to be. And nobody knows you're uncomfortable unless you tell them.
Yeah.
Right?
I really love that.
So
Debbie, before we wrap this up, what I would love to know is, what are some of the practices that you have with yourself to keep your relationship with yourself fueled up?
Yeah, therapy. I'm
more
totally
therapy
in
for everyone.
Yeah, everyone, everywhere. Therapy. Actually, I think I'm really fortunate in that my job keeps it. It's ongoing work. I think having a good relationship with your body is like having a good relationship with anyone else. So I think it takes work and takes practice. So I'm fortunate in that because of my job, I've created a situation in which I'm working those muscles, if you will, to make peace with my body about 24 hours a day. But I think that what has saved me is being in that space, is talking to other people and constantly remembering essentially what you had in pole dancing class, which is like, oh, she looks different than me. And I bet she's feeling the exact same way. And she looks different and she looks different and she looks different. Everybody, if you talk about it, you're going to find out everybody's feeling the same thing, right? Which doesn't mean you have to talk about it. But I think that's been, for me, creating a real openness and an ability to not get caught in a feeling, but to allow yourself to just move through the feelings. I mean, even in this podcast, I've felt a full range of like excited and embarrassed and titillated and nervous and all of those things. And every feeling you just kind of move through until the next one comes along. So just giving yourself the space to do that.
I love that. And then you've mentioned your husband and your beautiful, like 15-year-long relationship. So what are some of the practices or habits, daily, weekly, monthly, annually, that you have to keep your relationship fueled up?
Therapy. And no, we have done therapy on and off. Honestly, I think this is where I think that the voice in my head can get to be just information, right? So when the voice in my head gets more critical, when I start to hear my voice start to complain about the size of my stomach or the size of my thighs or whatever, it usually, when that voice gets loud, it's usually indicative of something else. And honestly, more times than not, if I can find a way to connect with my husband, it gets better. So I think that a lot of times when the critic gets super loud, it's my way of saying like, oh, I haven't had a chance to connect. I don't think that there is one right way to connect. You know, we're 15 years in and we have 2 kids. And so sometimes we like to watch a show after the kids go to bed, but sometimes one of the things that I'll do is I'll just be like, hey, instead of watching a show, can we just talk? It doesn't have to be about anything important. Like, I just need to talk to you and have it not feel like it's on the list of things of, did you pack that lunch or whatever? That's one thing. And then I think, again, my husband and I have been having, because I work in the space of, he's always like, God, you think so much about more about body relationships than I do. And which is totally normal. But because of that, sort of, we get into questions of, I've definitely had times of being like, wow, I'm not feeling attractive right now. But I also know that me not feeling attractive doesn't mean you're not attracted to me. And then, of course, we get into the conversation. Then he never leads with when I'm not feeling attractive. He's never like, yeah, I don't think you're attractive today either. But we've also talked about how his feelings can sort of like, there are days I'm more attracted to him and days I'm less attracted to him. And there's been sort of this mutual understanding and conversation around the fact that we both feel we are perpetually worthy of being attracted to, and that these ebbs and flows have so much more to do, again, where we're at emotionally than it does with the partner. Because I think it's really easy to be like, wow, we haven't connected as much lately. It must be because I'm doing something wrong. And it doesn't have to be, right? It can just be like, yeah, well, they're really into something right now, or they're really into work or any of that. So we've also made a space for the fact that we met when my husband was 24. I was 27. I'm 42. He's 39. So we also both miss the younger versions of ourselves, but we also like these versions. Like, I think there's space for both. With my kids too, like my kids are 5 and 7. They were adorable as babies. I wouldn't go back for the life. But to have the same sort of compassion and to know that it's okay to miss an older version or a younger, I guess, depending on how you're looking at it, like younger version of your partner or like a version of your partner. But liking one version doesn't mean that a new version is bad or wrong. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's like season 1 character versus season 6 character. Love them both for different reasons.
Yeah, totally different reasons at totally different stages of their lives. And that, yeah, you can miss one without it meaning that season 6 doesn't have to like do everything in their power to get back to season 1. That would be weird. So just to sort of remember that.
Can you tell us about your Sunday practice?
Yeah, my daughter was born on a Sunday. And so ever since she was born, every Sunday, since my daughter was born, she's now 7, we have gotten together in the same spot in the family house, unless we're on vacation, but we're in the same positions. And we've taken a picture every single week since she's been born. And then my son was born on a Friday. We still do it on Sundays. Sorry. But you're watching us age week by week. You can see nobody sees anything in this there, right? Yeah. So I'm sitting in front of a wall of family selfies right here. The top one is when my son was born and my daughter was 2. And then the bottom one in the corner is when he turned 1. And you just literally watch us age at a weekly progressive state. So
that's a really nice ritual. It's a really nice moment of connection and documenting.
Yeah, it's fun. And you can see, it's funny because like some of them, Like the kids are screaming. And I can remember, I have one of those memories that just from a photo, I can go back to the moment. So some of them are like us screaming, and then I could see it, hold still and smile. And we're like, and like, but I remember all the stories. And then some of them we didn't even bother to smile for. Some of them were angry.
Just get it done.
But, they're all part of it. Get it done. We are taking this family selfie. The plan is to do it as long as the kids will let us. We've had a little bit of protest, but we're like still old enough to be like, our house, our rules. At some point, they'll probably, I don't know. I'm hoping that it's like habitual enough that when they want to stop doing it, they feel they can. That's mom guilt. Oh man, that's horrible. But I plan on using it fully.
I really love that the photos are real, and that it does reflect.
They're very real.
Yeah, it does reflect what's going on at the time too, and it's not this perfectly manicured version of a family.
It's just a really nice ritual, a moment of connection that you're carving out every week, and I think that's such a precious thing that even that you've been able to maintain it for this long is really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
So, Debbie, thank you so much for joining us and having some chats about your experience and what you've learned and what you've picked up along the way and how we can integrate some of those things into our relationship with ourselves. But to say thank you, we've actually given 100 days of medication to some nursery school children in Ethiopia. So we know that if they can get their health right early in life, it can have a drastic ripple effect. So thank you so much for making that possible.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. That's awesome that you guys do that.
Good health and well-being matters. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Debbie, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about what you do, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can always check out my website. It's bodyrelationship.com. In fact, if you're looking for that self-assessment of how do you need a diet culture detox, it's the only kind of detox I'm comfortable with, because all other detoxes are diet culture. So if you want to see how much diet culture lives within you, you can go to bodyrelationship.com/detox. There's always ways to work with me. I do one-on-one coaching, but I have a private community that I just want to share because what it's become is it's very intimate at the moment. I have an Australian name, just so you know. But it's international. There's also someone from Berlin. It's a pretty small group, but it's a diverse group of women who we get together regularly. And that is your opportunity to have that feeling of like, oh, she feels the same way. She doesn't look like me, but she feels the same way. And she feels the same way. And she feels the same way. And it's really just an opportunity to normalize different bodies, but also normalize the feelings you have so that you can, again, identify them as a diet culture feeling versus actual truth. And so you can find more information on that at bodyrelationship.com. But it's a pretty special thing that I do. And you can also find me on Instagram. I'm very busy on Instagram at bodyrelationship_coach. You'll see me. It's me. And I respond to everything. So if people send me a message, I will write you back. I really love talking to people. If you haven't figured out from the past 45 minutes that I really like talking, I will let you talk too. If you message me, I will let you talk too. And I just love connecting with people and, again, just normalizing those feelings. It's part of my recovery as well, honestly. So.
And also, I think like if this is something that you're experiencing and you've been experiencing it, up until this point in your life, and it's not been a problem you've been able to solve on your own, ask for help. Go reach out to a coach, whether or not that's Debbie or someone else. Like, you don't have to live in the relationship the way that it is. Like, it can be amazing.
Totally.
So I encourage you, if any of this has resonated, reach out, slide into the DMs, hit up the quiz and figure out how you're seeing yourself in the world. So thank you so much, Debbie.
Oh, thank you guys so much. This was so fun. I really had a wonderful time.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.